Hello everyone, I am Nidhi Sharma. Welcome to Economics Decoction where I share the essence of economics. So in this video we are going to understand the budget analysis and consumer equilibrium. In my previous videos we have already discussed about the cardinal approach and the ordinal approach to utility analysis. And in this video we are going to understand how by the interaction of the budget line and the indifference curve the consumer equilibrium is determined. So if you are new to the channel, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and also join my Telegram channel by the name Economics Decoction. Follow me on Unacademy. You can see this is the screenshot of my profile at Unacademy. You can attend my free live classes at Unacademy where I prepare you for the UGC NET GRF and economics examination. Okay, so make sure to attend the free live classes of mine at Unacademy. And also, if you're preparing to get subscription at Unacademy, this is a very good idea. So do not forget to use my code NSNET to get 10% discount on all your subscription charges at Unacademy. So yes friends, do not forget to use the code NSNET to get a 10% discount at all your subscription charges at Unacademy. Now let's start our today's video. So in this video, we are going to basically understand the consumer budget and the determination of consumer equilibrium. So make sure that you watch this video till the end. So first of all, let's understand what is consumer budget. The maximizing behavior of the consumer is constrained by his limited income. So the first thing that we need to understand that is that the consumer has limited income. Okay, with only a limited income, a consumer cannot purchase all that he or she wants. And provided a limited income of the consumer definitely cannot buy everything that he or she wants because the consumer's income is limited. So the availability of consumption bundles to a consumer depends mainly on the following two factors. So what are those two factors? The first one is the price of goods and services and the second one is the income of the consumer. So these are the two factors on which the consumption bundles of a consumer depends upon. Given the income of the consumer and the prices of the goods and services, a consumer can purchase only those combinations of goods and services such that his total expenditure on the goods and services is less than or equal to his income. So, we can clearly understand that the total expenditure that a consumer can make on purchase of consumption bundles must be less than equal to his total income. The total expenditure cannot exceed the total income of the consumer. Please keep this fact in mind. Now let's understand what is budget set. A budget set represents those combination of consumption bundles that are available to the consumer given his or her income level and at existing market prices. So basically a budget set represents those combinations of the consumption bundles which a consumer can purchase given his money income and the market prices of the goods. In other words, it represents those consumption bundles that the consumer can purchase using his or her money income. So let x1 be the amount of good 1 and let x2 be the amount of good 2. And P1 is the price of good 1 and P2 is the price of good 2. Thus, P1x1 is the amount of money spent on good 1 and similarly P2x2 is the amount of money spent on good 2. This is basically price into quantity. And this shows how much amount are we spending on good 1 and good 2 respectively. So what is budget line? Budget line shows all those combination of two goods which the consumer can buy by spending his given money income on the two goods at the given prices. So what does budget line represent? It represents the combination of two goods that a consumer can buy given his money income and the prices of goods. So P1x1 plus P2x2 must be less than equals to M. That means the total expenditure incurred on good 1 and good 2 must be less than equal to the total money income of the consumer. This is known as the budget constraint. Note, the use of less than equals to sign in the constraint implies that the total amount spent on two goods together should be less than or equal to his or her given income level. So we have already discussed about this fact. In other words, a particular consumption bundle is available or affordable to a consumer if the total amount of money spent on both the goods is less than or equal to the total available money income. So basically, the consumer's total expenditure must be less than equal to his total income. Now let's understand the budget equation. The budget equation is represented as P1x1 plus P2x2 is equals to M. This means the expenditure on good 1 plus expenditure on good 2 is equal to the money income of the consumer. So solving for x2, we get P2x2 is equals to M minus P1x1, where x2 is equals to M by P2 minus P1 by P2 into x1. So in this figure, we can see that the budget line is represented as a downward sloping curve. So where P1x1 plus P2x2 is equals to M, and M by P2 is the vertical intercept. It represents the amount of x2 that the consumer can purchase if he spends his entire income on good 2. So if a consumer spends his entire income on good 2, then M by P2 amount of good 2 is something that a consumer can purchase. Okay, and minus P1 by P2 represents the slope of the budget line. So the slope of the budget line is represented by the negative of the price ratio, that means minus P1 by P2. This is also called as the price ratio. The negative sign depicts the negative slope of the budget line from left to right. So you must be wondering, why have we put the negative sign before the price ratio? The negative sign basically denotes the negative slope of the budget line. As you can see, this curve or this budget line is downward sloping. That's why the slope of this budget line is minus P1 by P2. Alright. So M by P2 represents the amount of good 2 that a consumer can afford if he spends entire income on purchasing good 2. Similarly, M by P1, that means the intercept of the horizontal axis, represents the amount of good 1 that a consumer can buy if he spends his entire income on purchasing good 1. Now, how will the budget line respond to change in money income or due to change in price of goods? Let's understand this thing. If the money income of the consumer increases, so what happens to the budget line? The budget line shifts rightward. As you can see in the first figure, due to increase in money income, the budget line has shifted rightward, and the converse would be in case of decrease in money income. In case of decrease in money income, the budget line shifts leftward or it shifts backward. Okay? Now let's understand what happens when the prices of goods changes. That means either the price increase or it decreases. So what happens if there is a decrease in price of good 2? So if there is a decrease in price of good 2, and mind it, we are measuring good 2 on the y axis or on the vertical axis. So when there is a decrease in price of good 2, the budget line, it swivels a little upward, okay, towards the y axis or towards the good 2 axis. As you can see in the figure, the budget line has swiveled upward direction, in the upward direction, and the opposite happens when there is an increase in price of good 2. So when there is an increase in price of good 2, the budget line swivels in the downward direction, and this represents that we, the consumer, can basically purchase less of good 2 given his money income. The reason is that good 2 has become expensive. That's the reason why the budget line has swiveled in the downward direction. Now we can generally understand that what happens when there is a decrease in price of good 1. So when there is a decrease in price of good 1, the budget line swivels in the outward direction or in the rightward direction, where we are measuring good 1 on the x-axis. Okay, towards that axis it is going to swivel. As you can see in the figure, the budget line swivels in the rightward direction due to decrease in price of good 1. This represents that the consumer, given his money income, he or she can buy more units or more amount of good 1 because it has become less expensive. Okay, and the opposite case is going to happen when there is an increase in price of good 1. When there is an increase in price of good 1, the budget line is going to swivel in the backward or in the leftward direction. This shows that the consumer can now purchase less amount of good 1 given his money income level, because good 1 has become expensive. So the affordability of the consumer does not permit him to buy more of good one because it has become expensive. Now let's understand the phenomena of consumer equilibrium. Consumer equilibrium refers to the optimum choice of the consumer. So the optimum choice of the consumer means consumer equilibrium. It reaches, that means the consumer reaches equilibrium when he maximizes his satisfaction. So at consumer equilibrium, the consumer's satisfaction is maximized. So for consumer equilibrium, the following two conditions must be satisfied. Now what are those conditions? Let's have a look. The first condition is that the marginal rate of substitution or MRS must be equal to the price ratio, that means Px by Py. And the second condition is that the IC is convex at the point of equilibrium. Okay, so in this figure we can see that point E is the point of consumer's equilibrium, and here the budget line is tangent to the indifference curve. So in my previous video where I have discussed about the ordinal approach to utility analysis, where I have already discussed about the indifference curve in detail. So if you have not watched the video, the link is provided in the description box. Make sure to check that out as well and watch that video because it is very helpful for you. So there I told you that the slope of the indifference curve is represented by the marginal rate of substitution. And in this video, just few minutes back, I told you that the slope of the budget line is represented by the price ratio. So thus we can say that at consumer equilibrium, where the budget line is tangent to the indifference curve, at that point the MRS is equal to the price ratio. That means the slope of the indifference curve is equal to the price line. The slope of IC is equal to the slope of price line or the slope of budget line. Alright, now let's proceed further. Now here is something very important that you must note. It should be noted that at all the other points lying on the budget line, such as point B and point C, are inferior to x1 star and x2 star as they lie on a lower indifference curve. So our consumer equilibrium point was point E, and corresponding to this equilibrium point, the optimum bundles are x1 star and x2 star. Any other point other than this point, that means let's say it's point B or point C, are inferior to x1 star and x2 star because they are lying on a lower indifference curve. And as I have already told you in my previous video, that a higher indifference curve represents a higher level of satisfaction. So this consumer equilibrium, that is at point E, is achieved at IC2, which is at a higher indifference curve, while point B and point C are on a lower indifference curve, that is they are on IC1. Thus, the consumer can rearrange his consumption and again reach equilibrium where the marginal rate of substitution is equal to the price ratio. Okay? For example, at point B, MRS is greater than the price ratio. In this case, the consumer would tend to move towards point E by giving up some amount of good 2 to increase the consumption of good 1. So when the consumer is at point B, the consumer tends to move towards the equilibrium point E by giving up some amount of good 2 in order to get some more amount of good 1, and thus the consumer moves from point B to the equilibrium point E. And similarly, at point C, when the consumer is at point C, MRS is less than the price ratio. In this case, the consumer would tend to move towards point E by giving up some amount of good 1 to increase the consumption of good 2. So when the consumer is at point C, the consumer tends to move towards the consumer's equilibrium point, that is at point E, by giving up some amount of good 1 in order to get some more amount of good 2. And thus by doing such rearrangements, the consumer moves from point B and from point C towards the consumer equilibrium point E, and the optimum bundle or the optimal bundle is x1 star and x2 star, where at the equilibrium point MRS is equal to the price ratio. By this we come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching this video, and make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with your friends, and let me know in the comment section what are your views regarding the topics that we are discussing and what more videos would you like to see. Okay, and join our Telegram channel as well, that is Economics Decoction. Follow me on Unacademy, attend my live classes because they are going to help you cracking your GRF in economics. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon in my next video. Till then, keep studying.